Why did my ex-husband try to stop his own wedding the moment he saw me? My ex-husband left me after 11 years of marriage because he said I wasn't exciting anymore. Those were his exact words. He said he loved me, but he wasn't in love with me. He said I had become predictable and boring, and he needed something more out of life. I was 34 years old and had spent my entire adult life building a home with this man. I put him through graduate school by working double shifts at a restaurant. I supported him through 3 different career changes. I moved to 4 different cities because his jobs kept relocating us. And after all of that, he sat me down one evening and told me he had met someone else. Her name was Brooke. She was 26 years old and worked at the gym. He said it just happened and he couldn't control his feelings. He said he hoped we could still be friends because I was such an important part of his life. The divorce was final 8 months later. He got the house because his name was on the mortgage even though I paid half of it for years. I got a small settlement that barely covered my moving costs. I started over completely at 35 with nothing but a suitcase and the cooking skills I had picked up working in restaurants for over a decade. I moved back to my hometown and got a job at a local catering company. Within 2 years, I had saved enough to start my own business. I worked every weekend, every holiday, every event I could book. I built a reputation for quality food and reliable service. By year 3, I had a small team and a client list that kept growing. I was proud of what I created from nothing. Then one afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my ex-husband. He said he heard through mutual friends that I started a catering business. He said he always knew I was talented in the kitchen. Then he asked if I was available to cater a wedding in June. I asked whose wedding. He said his. He was marrying Brooke and they wanted the best caterer in the area and everyone kept recommending my company. He said it would mean so much to both of them if I could be part of their special day. He said Brooke specifically loved the menu samples she saw online and really wanted my food at her wedding. I sat there listening to this man ask me to cook for the woman he left me for. He didn't see anything strange about it. He talked about it like he was asking an old friend for a favor. He said he knew we had history, but we were both adults, and he hoped I had moved on by now just like he had. He even asked if I could give him a discount since we used to be family. I said yes. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I wanted to prove I was over it. Maybe I wanted to see their faces when they realized how well I was doing. Maybe I just wanted the money because weddings pay well and business is business. I spent 3 months planning their menu. I coordinated with their venue and their planner and made sure every detail was perfect. I never spoke to Brooke directly. She sent requests through my ex-husband and he would relay them to me like I was some kind of assistant. She wanted a 5-course meal. She wanted a raw bar and a pasta station and a dessert table with 7 different options. She wanted everything to be elegant but not too formal. My ex-husband called me twice a week with updates and changes and new demands. He always ended the calls by saying how grateful he was that I was being so mature about everything. The wedding day came in early June. I arrived at the venue with my team at noon to start setting up. The ceremony wasn't until 5, so we had plenty of time. I was in the kitchen organizing stations when my ex-husband walked in. He stopped in the doorway and just stared at me. I was wearing my chef coat and had my hair pulled back and was holding a clipboard going over the timeline with my sous chef. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he said I looked really good. He said the business must be treating me well. He asked if I was seeing anyone. I told him that wasn't his concern and got back to work. The ceremony started on time. I watched from the kitchen window as 200 guests took their seats in the garden. The music started and Brooke walked down the aisle in a big white dress that probably cost more than my first car. My ex-husband stood at the altar waiting for her. He looked nervous, but everyone looks nervous at weddings. Then right before the officiant started speaking, my ex-husband looked toward the building, toward the kitchen, toward the window where I was standing. Our eyes met for just a second. The officiant asked if anyone had any objections. My ex-husband didn't say anything, but he didn't look away from me either. The ceremony freezes in this awful moment where my ex-husband is staring at me instead of his bride, and I can see Brooke's confusion turning to alarm as she follows his gaze toward the kitchen window where I'm standing. I step back from the window immediately, my heart pounding, while Peyton grabs my arm and whispers that we need to focus on the food stations. The officiant clears his throat and repeats the question about objections, and I hear my ex-husband say, before trailing off into silence that makes 200 guests shift uncomfortably in their seats. Through the kitchen side door I can see Grayson, the best man, lean in to whisper something urgent while Brooke's face goes pale under her makeup. I force myself to turn away from the ceremony chaos and focus on the pasta station setup, but my hands are shaking so badly that Peyton takes the serving spoons from me and tells me to check on the dessert table instead. The ceremony music has stopped completely, and I can hear confused murmuring from the guests drifting through the open windows. I walk to the far end of the kitchen where the dessert table is set up, counting the 7 different options we prepared, making sure each one is positioned correctly. My hands won't stop shaking. I pick up a serving knife and put it down 3 times because I can't get it straight. Peyton appears beside me and takes the knife gently, setting it in place herself. She doesn't say anything, but her eyes are worried. Lena, the wedding planner, bursts into the kitchen looking frantic, asking if we can delay the cocktail hour because there's a situation with the ceremony that needs a few minutes to resolve. I tell her we can hold the hot appetizers, but the cold items are already plated, and the timing will be off if we wait too long. She nods quickly and disappears back outside. I can hear voices rising in the garden, not quite shouting, but loud enough to carry through the walls. 10 minutes pass with no ceremony conclusion, and through the window I watch guests starting to stand up and mill around awkwardly, while Brooke and my ex-husband have what looks like an intense whispered argument near the altar. Nora, the maid of honor, has her arm around Brooke while Grayson is physically positioned between my ex-husband and the aisle like he's preventing an escape. The photographer has stopped taking pictures and is standing off to the side looking confused. Some guests are checking their phones. Others are whispering to each other with worried expressions. Rajesh, the venue coordinator, comes to tell me that the ceremony is taking a brief intermission and asks if we can serve the cocktail hour appetizers early to give guests something to do. I agree and send my team out with trays of food, grateful for the distraction of logistics, even as my mind races with what's happening outside. My staff moves efficiently, carrying out the crab cakes and stuffed mushrooms grooms and bacon-wrapped dates we prepared. I watch them navigate through the confused crowd of wedding guests who seem relieved to have something to focus on, besides the drama at the altar. My ex-husband appears in the kitchen doorway still in his tuxedo, his face flushed and desperate, and says he needs to talk to me right now. Peyton immediately steps between us and tells him this is a professional kitchen during an active event, and he needs to leave. But he's staring at me with an expression I haven't seen since our early dating years. His eyes are wide and pleading. His hair is messed up like he's been running his hands through it. He looks younger somehow, vulnerable in a way that reminds me of when we first met. I tell Peyton it's fine and step outside with him to the service hallway, where he immediately starts apologizing and saying he made a terrible mistake, and seeing me today made him realize what he gave up. His words tumble out in a rush about how I look confident and successful, and he remembers why he fell in love with me, and I feel absolutely nothing except a strange, detached clarity. I watch him talk, and it's like watching a stranger, someone I used to know a long time ago. I cut him off and ask if he's seriously doing this on his wedding day, in his wedding tuxedo, while his bride waits at the altar and 200 guests eat the appetizers I prepared. He says he knows the timing is awful, but he couldn't say his vows while looking at me through that window, couldn't promise forever to Brooke when he just realized he still has feelings for me. I tell him he doesn't have feelings for me. He has feelings about me succeeding without him after he expected me to fall apart. He looks stunned and starts to argue, but I keep talking, saying he loved the version of me who supported his dreams and moved for his jobs, and made myself smaller, so he could feel bigger. He reaches for my hand, but I step back fast. I tell him I'm here as the caterer he hired, not his ex-wife ready to fix whatever mess he's making of his life. I say I have 200 people waiting for a 5-course meal, and a team whose timing is already messed up because he decided to have a breakdown at his own altar. I tell him he needs to figure out what he's doing about his wedding right now, because every minute he stands here talking to me is another minute my scallops sit getting warm, and my pasta water boils too long. He opens his mouth to say something else, but Lena appears at the end of the hallway looking completely panicked. She says Brooke is having a total breakdown in the bridal suite, and demanding to know why the ceremony stopped and what's happening and whether he's actually going to marry her. My ex-husband looks between me and Lena with this expression like a trapped animal. I tell him he made this situation, and he needs to handle it without dragging me into it anymore. I walk past both of them back into the kitchen where my team is standing around looking worried. Peyton catches my arm and asks if I'm okay. I realize I actually am okay. His desperate confession in the hallway didn't make me feel happy or sad or anything except tired. Tired of being part of whatever drama he creates for himself. Tired of him treating me like I'm supposed to fix his feelings or validate his choices. I tell Peyton I'm fine and we need to focus on the timeline. I tell my whole team we're moving forward with service as planned no matter what happens with the ceremony because we have a contract and a reputation. They all nod and get back to their stations. I check the scallops and they're still good. I adjust the pasta water temperature. I review the plating setup for appetizers. 20 minutes go by with voices carrying from other parts of the venue, but nothing clear enough to understand. Then Lena comes back looking exhausted and says the ceremony is continuing and we should be ready for the original reception timeline. I nod without asking what happened or how they fixed it. I don't want to know. I tell my team 12 minutes until we need to start plating the scallop appetizers. Through the kitchen window, I watch the ceremony conclude. My ex-husband and Brooke walk down the aisle together holding hands and smiling, but their smiles look wrong, too tight, too forced, like they're both pretending really hard that everything is fine. The guests clap and take pictures, but I can see people whispering to each other. The ceremony moves to cocktail hour, and guests start spreading out across the patio area. I'm arranging garnishes on appetizer plates when someone walks into the kitchen. It's a woman in a deep purple bridesmaid dress. She introduces herself as Nora and says she's the maid of honor. She asks if she can talk to me directly about something. I wipe my hands on my apron and step aside from the plating station. Nora asks straight out if I'm the ex-wife, the one her best friend has been obsessing over for months. The successful caterer Brooke insisted on hiring even though my prices were higher than other companies. I confirm that yes, I'm the ex-wife. Nora's whole face changes like something just clicked into place for her. She says that explains so much about how Brooke has been acting. She tells me Brooke has been competitive and anxious about me through their entire relationship, constantly comparing herself to the boring wife he left behind, always asking him questions about what I was like and what we did together, and whether he ever thinks about me. Nora says seeing my success in my business threatened whatever story Brooke had built in her head about why she was the better choice. I listen without interrupting. Nora keeps talking and says Brooke specifically chose my company after looking at my website and social media. She wanted to prove she could afford the best. Wanted to show my ex-husband she was more sophisticated and successful than his previous life with me. I realized right then that this whole wedding was never actually about wanting my food. It was about Brooke trying to prove she was superior to me by hiring me to work for her, by making me serve her at her wedding to my ex-husband. Nora watches my face and seems to understand what I'm thinking. I tell her I appreciate the context, but I'm here to do my job no matter what the psychological reasons are behind it. Nora nods but says I should know that Brooke is currently in the bridal suite, demanding my ex-husband explain why he hesitated during the vows, why he looked at the kitchen instead of at her. Nora adds that she's been watching their relationship for 2 years now, and she has serious doubts about whether either of them actually wants this marriage or if they're both just trying to prove something. I thank her for telling me but say I need to get back to service. The reception starts and I focus completely on executing every course perfectly. My team sends out the raw bar station with oysters and shrimp and crab legs arranged on ice. The pasta station goes up with 3 different sauces and fresh bread. I monitor timing for the main course and make sure everything is coordinated. My staff moves efficiently between kitchen and reception hall. Peyton gives me a look that says we're doing great work despite everything. I hear toasts starting in the reception hall, voices carrying through the pass-through window, but I don't stop to listen. I plate filet mignon with truffle butter and roasted vegetables. I check each plate before it goes out. I feel genuine pride in how professional we're being, even with all this personal chaos swirling around us. Between courses, a man in a dark suit walks into the kitchen. He introduces himself as Grayson and says he's the best man. He He asks if he can talk to me for a minute about what happened during the ceremony. I wipe my hands on my apron and step away from the prep station while Peyton keeps working behind me. Grayson looks uncomfortable standing there surrounded by my team and all the cooking equipment. He says he wants to apologize for his friend's behavior during the vows. He says my ex-husband has been really anxious about this wedding for weeks now, and today everything just came to a head. I tell him he doesn't need to apologize for someone else's choices. Grayson shifts his weight and says he knows, but he feels responsible because he's known about the situation for a long time. He says my ex-husband talks about me often, always says the divorce was his biggest mistake, always brings me up when he's had too much to drink or when he's fighting with Brooke. Grayson says his friend never takes real responsibility for choosing to leave though, just frames it like something that happened to him instead of something he decided to do. I feel this weird calm settling over me as I listen. Grayson keeps talking and says he tried to be supportive when his friend started dating Brooke, but he could see the pattern forming. The same restlessness that ended our marriage showing up again. The constant looking for something more exciting or different or new. Grayson says he watched my ex-husband get engaged to Brooke mostly because she pushed for it, and he didn't want to seem like he was backing down from commitment again. I ask Grayson why he's telling me all this. He says because I deserve to know that today wasn't really about me. It was about his friend finally facing the consequences of chasing excitement instead of building stability. I tell Grayson I appreciate him coming here, but I don't need his friend's regret or validation. I say I built a good life after the divorce, and his timing today was selfish and destructive to everyone involved, including Brooke, who doesn't deserve to be humiliated at her own wedding. Grayson nods and says I'm absolutely right. He says he tried to talk his friend out of this wedding months ago, but got shut down completely. He says he's watched my ex-husband chase novelty and excitement while destroying the stable things in his life, and it's been hard to stay friends with someone who keeps making the same mistakes. Grayson thanks me for being professional today, and says the food is incredible. Then he walks back out to the reception hall. Peyton comes over and squeezes my shoulder without saying anything. I take a deep breath and refocus on the main course plating. The filet mignon comes out perfectly cooked with truffle butter melting over the top, and roasted vegetables arranged beside it. My team plates each dish with care, and the servers carry them out in synchronized waves. Within 20 minutes, we start getting compliments sent back through the servers. Guests are telling their waiters the steak is the best they've ever had at a wedding. Someone asks for the recipe for the truffle butter. Another table wants to know if we do private dinner parties. Peyton squeezes my shoulder again and says, "This is some of our best work." I feel genuine satisfaction in the professional quality we've maintained, despite all the personal chaos swirling around this event. We executed a complex 5-course meal for 200 people, and it's flawless. That matters more than whatever drama is happening at the head table. During the dinner service, I glance through the kitchen, pass through window, and notice my ex-husband at the bride and groom table. He's not eating much. He keeps looking toward the kitchen instead of engaging with Brooke or the guests at their table. I watch Brooke notice his distraction. Her face gets tight and angry each time his attention drifts away from her. She leans in to say something and he nods but doesn't really seem to be listening. Their table conversation looks increasingly tense and strained. The maid of honor Nora keeps trying to redirect the mood by making toasts and telling stories, but the tension at that table is visible even from the kitchen. I turn away and focus on dessert prep because their relationship problems are not my concern. I'm here to do a job and I'm doing it well. A man in an expensive suit walks into the kitchen during a lull between courses. He introduces himself as Edmund and says he's Brooke's father. He says he hired my company and he wanted to personally compliment the food. Everything has been outstanding, and his guests keep telling him this is the best wedding meal they've attended. I thank him and say my team worked hard to execute his daughter's vision for the menu. Edmund looks at me for a long moment and then says he knows there's complicated history here. He says he appreciates that I didn't let it affect the quality of service. Then he adds something that surprises me. He says he's not sure this marriage is going to last, but at least the food will be memorable. I don't know what to say to that. Edmund seems to realize he's spoken too candidly because he laughs a little and says he shouldn't be so honest with the caterer, but then he keeps talking anyway. He says he's watched Brooke rush into this relationship and wedding despite his concerns. He says she's been driven by competition and insecurity rather than genuine partnership. He says my success clearly triggered something in her that made this wedding more about proving something than celebrating love. Edmund tells me Brooke researched me extensively after my ex-husband mentioned I started a catering business. She looked at my website and social media and saw that I was doing well professionally. That seemed to bother her more than anything else about me. She wanted to prove she was more successful and sophisticated than the boring wife her husband left behind. Edmund says hiring my company was Brooke's idea, and he went along with it because the food samples were excellent, and he wanted her to have the wedding she wanted. But he realizes now that it was a mistake because it put everyone in an impossible situation. I tell Edmund I appreciate his honesty, but I'm just here to provide a service. What happens with their marriage after today is not my responsibility. Edmund nods and says I'm right and he respects my professionalism. Then he goes back to the reception. I start plating the dessert course with my team. 7 different options arranged beautifully on the display table. Chocolate cake and lemon tart and raspberry mousse and tiramisu and creme brulee and cheesecake and fruit tart. Each one garnished and perfect. I'm adjusting the angle on a slice of cheesecake when I see Brooke standing in the kitchen doorway. She's still in her wedding dress, but her makeup is smudged like she's been crying. She looks both angry and desperate standing there. She asks if she can speak with me privately. I glance at Peyton, who gives me a concerned look. I wipe my hands and step into the hallway with Brooke. The door closes behind us and suddenly we're alone in this narrow service corridor. Brooke doesn't waste time. She says I ruined her wedding day. She says just by being here looking successful and confident, I made her husband question his choice. I stay calm and remind her that she specifically hired my company. I say I'm here because she requested my services and her husband's feelings are not my responsibility. Brooke's face crumples and she starts crying harder. She says she knows and that makes it worse. She says she hired me because she wanted to see if I was really as boring and forgettable as her husband described. She wanted to prove to herself that she was the better choice, the more exciting option, the woman worth leaving a marriage for. She says seeing me today being professional and composed and clearly thriving, made her realize she's been competing with a fantasy version of me that never existed. She says her husband built me up in his mind as this boring, stable person he outgrew, but I'm obviously none of those things. I'm successful and confident, and I've built something real. Brooke says she spent 2 years trying to be exciting enough to keep his attention, and now she's realizing that excitement isn't actually what makes a relationship work. I tell her I'm not her competition or her problem. I say the issues in her relationship exist independent of me, and my presence today just forced them to the surface instead of letting them stay hidden. Brooke wipes her eyes and asks if I still have feelings for my ex-husband. I answer honestly that I don't. I say I'm grateful for the divorce because it pushed me to build something meaningful on my own terms. I tell her I spent 11 years supporting his dreams and moving for his jobs and making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. The divorce forced me to figure out who I was outside of being his wife, and I discovered I'm capable of much more than I ever knew. Brooke stares at me and I can see her processing this. She asks what she should do now. I tell her that's not my question to answer. I say she needs to decide if she's marrying who he actually is or who she hopes he'll become. She needs to figure out if she wants this relationship because it makes her happy or because she's trying to win some competition that doesn't actually exist. Brooke stares at me with tears still on her face and asks how I stopped loving him. The question catches me off guard because I haven't really thought about it in those terms. I tell her I didn't stop loving the person I married. I accepted that person no longer existed. The man who left me wasn't someone I wanted to build a life with. He wasn't the partner I thought I had for 11 years. I say she needs to decide if she's marrying who he actually is or who she hopes he'll become. She needs to figure out if this is what she really wants or if she's just trying to win something that doesn't matter. Brooke wipes her eyes and nods slowly. She thanks me quietly and turns to walk back to the reception. I watch her go down the hallway in that expensive white dress and wonder what she'll do with what I said. Then I push the door open and return to the kitchen where Peyton is arranging the last dessert plates. She looks at me with concern and asks if I'm okay. I realize I genuinely am. These confrontations with my ex-husband and his bride aren't breaking me down. They're making things clearer. I'm seeing the whole situation for what it really is instead of what I feared it might be. Peyton squeezes my shoulder and tells me the desserts are ready to go out. I check each display one more time and signal the servers to start service. The dessert course goes perfectly. Guests move through the reception hall choosing from 7 different options arranged on white tablecloths. Chocolate cake disappears first, then the lemon tarts and raspberry mousse. I watch from the kitchen doorway as people take photos of the dessert table before selecting their plates. Servers circulate with coffee and tea while the DJ plays soft music for the evening portion of the reception. One of my team members comes back to report that multiple guests are asking who catered the meal. Another says someone at table 12 wants my business card. I feel deep satisfaction watching people enjoy food we created. This is what I built from nothing. This is what I'm good at. Lena appears in the kitchen holding her planning binder and looking more relaxed than she has all day. She tells me this is the best wedding meal she's coordinated in 5 years. She says my team handled every complication with grace, and the food quality never wavered despite the personal drama. She asks for my business cards to give to 3 couples who are planning weddings next year. I hand her a stack and thank her for the referrals. She says I earned them through excellent work under difficult circumstances. We start breaking down the kitchen as the reception continues. My team packs serving dishes and clean stations while I inventory leftover food and update our tracking sheets. Peyton handles the dessert table breakdown, while 2 other staff members disassemble the pasta station. We work efficiently because we've done this dozens of times. Every piece of equipment has a place in our system. Every container gets labeled and packed in the correct order. I'm checking the final count on rented chafing dishes when someone says my name from the kitchen entrance. I turn around and see Dorothea standing there in a navy dress. She's smiling at me with the same proud expression she used to have when I worked for her catering company. She walks over and hugs me tight. She says she's incredibly proud of what I built. She tells me watching me work today reminded her why she knew I'd succeed when I went independent. Dorothea was the one who encouraged me to start my own business 3 years ago. She was the one who told me I had the skills and discipline to make it work. Seeing her here at this wedding feels like having a witness to how far I've come. Dorothea steps back and looks around the kitchen at my team working smoothly together. She comments on how professional everyone is and how well organized our breakdown process looks. Then she tells me she has something to discuss. She says she has a major corporate client looking for a caterer for a year-long contract of executive events. Monthly dinners, quarterly galas, occasional breakfast meetings, and lunch presentations. The client is a financial services firm with offices downtown, and they want consistent quality from a reliable vendor. Dorothea says she immediately thought of my company when they asked for recommendations. The contract would be worth more than I made in my entire first year of business. It would establish me with a client base that leads to other corporate accounts. It would mean steady income instead of the unpredictable booking schedule I currently manage. I stare at her trying to process what she just offered. This is the kind of opportunity that changes a small catering business into a real company. This is what I've been working toward for 3 years. I tell Dorothea I'm overwhelmed and thank her for thinking of me. She waves off my gratitude and says I earned this through consistent excellence and professional integrity. She says my reputation in the industry is built on more than just good food. People know I'm reliable and honest and I deliver what I promise. She adds that she heard about the personal complications today and is impressed I maintained quality under that pressure. She says that's exactly the kind of professionalism her corporate client needs. Someone who won't let personal issues affect business performance. Someone who can handle high-stress situations without falling apart. I feel emotion rising in my throat but push it down because we're still in the middle of an event. Dorothea gives me her client's contact information and tells me to call next week to set up a meeting. She hugs me again before leaving to rejoin the reception. The reception winds down over the next hour. Guests start leaving and the DJ begins packing equipment. My team efficiently loads our vans with clean containers and rented items. I handle final paperwork with Rajesh in his small office near the kitchen. He reviews our invoice and confirms everything matches our contract. Then he mentions that several guests asked for my business information during the reception. He He says the venue wants to add me to their preferred vendor list based on today's performance. He explains they only recommend caterers who consistently deliver excellent service and handle complications professionally. He saw how I managed the ceremony disruption without letting it affect food quality or timing. He thinks future couples booking this venue would benefit from working with my company. I thank him and provide the information he needs to add me to their vendor list. This means more referrals and more bookings at a beautiful venue that pays well. I walk out to the parking lot where my team is loading the last van. The sun has set and the garden lights are glowing across the lawn where the ceremony happened hours ago. I'm checking the equipment list on my clipboard when I see my ex-husband walking across the parking lot toward us. He's still wearing his tuxedo, but he looks exhausted. His bow tie is undone and hanging around his collar. His face looks drawn and lost. He stops a few feet away and asks if we can talk one more time. I don't look up from my clipboard. I tell him we have nothing left to discuss. I need to get my team home and equipment back to the kitchen. He takes a step closer and says he really needs to talk to me. Just 5 minutes. I finally look at him directly and repeat that we have nothing to discuss. His wedding is over. My job is done. Whatever he's feeling right now is not my concern. He runs his hand through his hair and says he's realizing he made a mistake marrying Brooke today. He says seeing me made him understand what he lost. He wants to know if there's any chance for us to reconnect. Maybe start over. Maybe try again now that we're both older and wiser. I feel nothing hearing these words. No anger, no satisfaction, no temptation, just tired irritation that he's still trying to make me responsible for his emotional crisis. I tell him clearly and firmly that there isn't any chance. I'm not interested in being his backup plan or his escape from consequences he created. I'm not interested in being the safe, comfortable option he runs back to when excitement doesn't work out. I built a good life without him. I don't need him in it. I don't want him in it. He looks devastated, like I just broke something inside him. He asks what he's supposed to do now. How is he supposed to fix this? I close my clipboard and look at him one final time. I tell him that's not my problem to solve. He needs to figure out his own life without using me as a reference point. He made his choices. He left our marriage. He married someone else today. Those are his consequences to handle. I'm not his wife anymore. I'm not his friend. I'm the caterer he hired who did excellent work and is now leaving. I turn away from him and climb into my van. Peyton is already in the passenger seat waiting. I start the engine and pull out of the parking lot while he's still standing there looking lost under the garden lights. As I drive away, I feel lighter than I have in years. Something that was weighing on me for 3 years just lifted. I don't love him. I don't hate him. I don't think about him. He's just someone I used to know who made choices I'm grateful for now. The divorce freed me to become someone I'm proud of. Someone capable and strong and successful. Someone who built something real from nothing. Back at my commercial kitchen, the fluorescent lights buzz overhead while Peyton and I work through the cleanup routine we've done 100 times. She's scrubbing down the prep station with hot soapy water, and I'm inventorying the serving platters we brought back from the venue. My hands move automatically through the familiar tasks, while my mind feels surprisingly quiet. Peyton looks up from the sink and tells me she's never seen me handle a situation more professionally or look more clearly over someone. I laugh and realize she's right. Today somehow finished something the divorce started 3 years ago. It gave me closure I didn't even know I still needed. We pack the last of the equipment into storage, and I lock up the kitchen around midnight, exhausted but satisfied with how we handled everything. The drive home takes 20 minutes through empty streets, and I keep replaying the moment I walked away from my ex-husband in that parking lot. How light I felt. How final it was. I get home late and pour myself a glass of wine, then walk out to my apartment balcony overlooking the downtown lights. The night air is cool, and I pull my sweater tighter while sitting in the cheap plastic chair I keep meaning to replace. I think about how different my life is from 3 years ago, when I was sobbing in a hotel room with divorce papers and no idea what came next. I built a business I'm genuinely proud of from nothing but determination and cooking skills. I developed a real reputation in this industry. I created independence I never had during my marriage when everything revolved around his career and his choices and his needs. I sip my wine and watch cars pass on the street below and feel grateful for the path that brought me here, even though it hurt so badly at the time. The next morning, I wake up to my phone buzzing with notifications. There's an email from Lena, the wedding planner, forwarding 3 referrals from guests who attended yesterday's wedding and want quotes for their own events. She's included glowing comments they made about the food quality and presentation. I also have a message from Dorothea with details about the corporate catering contract she mentioned. She's attached a meeting request for next week with the client and says they're very interested after hearing her recommendation. I'm still in bed reading these messages when my phone buzzes again with a text from Peyton, asking if I saw the review someone posted online. I open the link she sent and find a 5-star review raving about our food and service at yesterday's wedding. The reviewer calls it the best wedding meal they've ever had, and specifically mentions the perfectly cooked scallops and the dessert table variety. I screenshot the review for our website and social media, feeling proud of the work we did regardless of all the personal drama happening around us. My phone rings and I see my ex-husband's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He calls again 5 minutes later, then again, then a 4th time within the hour. I block his number without listening to any of the messages. I don't need to hear his regrets or confusion about what happened yesterday. I don't need to be part of whatever crisis his marriage is having in its first 24 hours. That's not my responsibility anymore, and I'm done being available for his emotional emergencies. I make coffee and toast and sit at my kitchen table going through the referral emails, responding with availability and pricing information. This is what matters now. Building my business, serving clients well, creating opportunities for my team. The following week, I meet with Dorothea and her corporate client at a downtown office building. I'm wearing my nicest business clothes and carrying my portfolio with photos of past events and sample menus. The client is a tech company that hosts regular executive dinners and networking events. They need a reliable caterer who can handle everything from intimate 10-person meals to large company gatherings. I present my proposal with pricing tiers and menu options, showing them examples of similar events I've catered successfully. They ask good questions about my team's experience and my company's capacity for last-minute changes. Dorothea jumps in several times to vouch for my reliability and quality, telling stories from when I worked for her and how she's watched my business grow. The meeting goes so well, they offer me the contract on the spot, with terms even better than I hoped for. A full-year commitment with a guaranteed minimum number of events per month and premium pricing that reflects the level of service they expect. I signed the corporate contract in their conference room while trying not to shake from excitement. This is a turning point for my business. It guarantees stable income for the next year and gives me prestigious exposure that will attract more high-end clients. The tech company has connections throughout the business community, and their endorsement means credibility I couldn't buy with advertising. I take my team out to celebrate that evening at a nice restaurant where we don't have to cook or serve anyone. I thank Peyton and my other staff members for the professionalism that made this opportunity possible. Their reliable work and positive attitudes created the reputation that led to this contract. We toast to the future, and I feel like I'm finally building something that will last. 2 days later, I get a message through social media from Nora, Brooke's maid of honor from the wedding. She tells me that Brooke and my ex-husband are in couples therapy already, and their marriage is rocky, but they're trying to work through it. She thanks me for being honest with Brooke during our conversation at the wedding. She says it helped her friends start asking real questions about what she actually wants, instead of just competing with some imaginary version of me. I appreciate the update, but I tell Nora clearly that I'm not interested in ongoing information about their relationship. I genuinely wish them well, but I need to maintain boundaries for my own peace of mind. Their marriage and their problems are not my concern anymore. Nora responds quickly saying she understands and respects my position. She adds that she hopes we can stay in touch professionally since she plans events regularly for her company, and was impressed with my work at the wedding. I agree to that, and we exchange business contact information, keeping things strictly professional. 2 months pass, and my business is thriving in ways I never imagined when I started this company 3 years ago. The corporate contract brings steady work that fills the gaps between weekend events. The wedding referrals from that complicated day keep leading to more bookings than I can handle alone. I'm turning down clients because my calendar is full and I don't have enough staff to take on more events. I hire 2 more team members and start training them on my standards for food quality and customer service. I also start looking at larger kitchen spaces because we're outgrowing our current facility. The storage is maxed out and we're constantly working around each other during prep for big events. I tour 3 commercial kitchens that are available for lease and start running numbers on what the expansion would cost versus the increased revenue it would enable. I choose the bigger kitchen space in an industrial area near downtown. The rent is higher than my current place, but the extra square footage and professional grade equipment already installed make it worth the investment. I sign a 3-year lease and start planning the move with my team. We schedule it for a slow week in October when we only have 2 small events booked. Peyton coordinates the packing and labeling while I handle updating all our vendor contacts and clients with the new address. The move takes 4 days and we're operational in the new space by the following Monday. The kitchen feels huge compared to where we started. We have separate prep stations for different types of cuisine, walk-in refrigerators that actually fit all our inventory, and proper storage for equipment that used to pile up in corners. I stand in the middle of the empty kitchen on our first morning and feel proud of how far the business has come in 3 years. 3 weeks after we settle into the new kitchen, I'm having lunch at a small restaurant downtown when Edmund walks in. He spots me immediately and comes over to my table, asking if he can join me for a few minutes. I agree, and he sits down looking tired but friendly. He tells me his daughter's marriage has been rough. They're in couples therapy twice a week, and Brooke is doing individual sessions too. He says she's working on herself and asking hard questions about what she actually wants from life instead of just competing with other people. I tell him I'm glad she's getting help, and he nods, then thanks me again for how I handled everything at the wedding. He says my professionalism during an impossible situation impressed him, and he's recommended my company to several of his business associates. 2 of them have already booked events with us for next quarter. I thank him for the referrals, and he says I earned them through quality work, that he respects people who maintain standards even under pressure. We talk for a few more minutes about the catering industry, and then he heads to his own table. I finish my lunch thinking about how strange it is that Brooke's father has become a better connection than my ex-husband ever was. The corporate client calls me in early November. Their contact person tells me they want to extend our contract for another full year and expand the scope to include quarterly executive retreats, in addition to the monthly events we're already doing. The new terms mean guaranteed work for the next 12 months with revenue that's triple what I made this time last year. I try to stay calm on the phone, but inside I'm celebrating. This contract alone could sustain my business even if wedding bookings slowed down. I tell them I'll have a formal proposal ready by the end of the week, and we schedule a meeting to finalize details. After I hang up, I call Peyton into my office and tell her the news. She hugs me and says this is exactly what we've been working toward, the stability that lets us plan long-term instead of scrambling for the next booking. We spend the afternoon updating our capacity planning and discussing whether we need to hire another full-time cook to handle the increased volume. By December, my business revenue has reached levels I never imagined when I started 3 years ago. I'm making more money than I did during my entire marriage, building savings and actually able to plan for the future. I start looking at apartments in nicer neighborhoods, places with actual amenities and space instead of the small rental I moved into after the divorce. I find a 2-bedroom unit in a quiet area with good natural light and a kitchen that doesn't make me feel like I'm still at work. The rent is higher than I've ever paid, but I can afford it now without stress. I sign the lease in January and spend the next 2 weeks furnishing it exactly how I want. I choose a couch because I like the fabric, not because someone else prefers leather. I hang art that makes me happy instead of compromising on neutral prints. I buy dishes and colors I actually enjoy looking at. The space feels completely mine in a way my married home never did. Every choice reflects my taste and priorities without considering anyone else's opinion. In February, I promote Peyton to kitchen manager with a significant raise and more authority over daily operations. She's earned it through 3 years of reliable work and good judgment. I realize I've built more than just a business. I've created a team of people who respect each other and do excellent work together. The professional relationships I've developed feel more solid than my marriage ever was. There's no pretending or performing, just clear expectations and mutual appreciation for what each person contributes. Peyton thanks me for the promotion and says she's learned more working here than in any culinary school. I tell her she made herself valuable through consistent quality, and I'm glad she's part of what we're building. 6 months after the wedding, we get booked for an event at the same venue. I'm in the kitchen prepping appetizers when Rajesh stops by to coordinate timing for service. He mentions casually that my ex-husband and Brooke got divorced after only 4 months of marriage. The news doesn't hit me the way I expected. I don't feel vindicated or sad or anything really, except mild curiosity about whether he learned anything from the pattern. Rajesh seems to expect more reaction, and I just shrug and say that's unfortunate, but not my concern. He nods and we move on to discussing the evening's schedule. Later, while my team is serving dinner, I think about how completely separate that part of my life feels now. Their marriage and divorce happened in a world I'm not part of anymore. I built something different and better on my own. 2 weeks later, I get messages from 3 different mutual friends saying my ex-husband has been trying to reach me. They all relay the same basic information that he's divorced now and wants to apologize properly. Maybe explore reconnecting since we're both single. I send the same response to all 3 friends. I'm not interested in any contact or relationship with him. That chapter of my life is completely closed. I don't say it with anger or bitterness, just as a simple fact. One friend pushes back saying he seems really sincere about making amends, and I should at least hear him out. I tell her clearly that I don't owe him my time or attention, that moving on means actually moving forward, not circling back to old patterns. She finally accepts my boundary and agrees to stop passing along his messages. In April, I meet someone at a corporate event I'm catering. He's a marketing consultant working with the same client, funny and smart with an easy confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. We talk during the cocktail hour about work and industry trends, and he asks for my card before leaving. 2 days later, he emails asking if I want to get coffee sometime, clearly asking for a date, not a business meeting. I say yes. We meet that weekend at a cafe near my apartment and talk for 3 hours about everything except work. He's been divorced for 2 years, has a good relationship with his ex-wife, and is honest about what went wrong in his marriage without making himself the victim. It's refreshing to build something new with someone who knows me as the successful business owner I am now, not the supporting character I used to be. He doesn't know about my past except what I choose to share. There's no history to navigate or old wounds to work around. My business celebrates its 4th anniversary in June. Revenue is 5 times what I made in my first year. I have a team of 8 people now and a waiting list of clients who want to book our services. I host a party at the new kitchen space for staff and key clients, serving food we all created together. Dorothea comes and brings a bottle of expensive wine, toasting to my success and saying she knew I had this in me from the beginning. Edmund attends with his wife and tells several people about how professional I was during difficult circumstances. Lena brings 2 other wedding planners she works with regularly. The room fills with people who respect what I've built and want to be part of its continued growth. I look around at the celebration and feel genuine pride in what we've accomplished together. In July, Dorothea calls and asks to meet for lunch. She tells me she's retiring at the end of the year after 40 years in the catering business. She wants to refer all her remaining clients to my company, trusting me to maintain the quality and integrity she built her reputation on. I'm honored by her confidence and a little overwhelmed by the growth opportunity. Her client list includes some of the most prestigious events in the region. Taking them on would establish my company at a level I hadn't planned to reach for another 5 years. She says she's watched me work for 4 years now and knows I have the skills and character to handle it. We spend the afternoon going through her client files and discussing transition plans. By the time lunch ends, I've agreed to take on her referrals starting in January. In August, a local business magazine contacts me about featuring my story in an article about entrepreneurs who rebuilt after major life setbacks. I agree to the interview and spend an afternoon talking honestly about how divorce pushed me to discover capabilities I didn't know I had. The reporter asks how I went from devastated and starting over to running a thriving business in 4 years. I tell her it wasn't a straight path, that I had to learn to value my own work and stop measuring my worth by someone else's approval. The article runs in September with a photo of me in my chef coat standing in the new kitchen. Within a week, I get emails from potential clients who read the story and want to book events. My website traffic triples, and I have to update our booking calendar to show we're fully scheduled through the following spring. The marketing consultant asks me over dinner at a small Italian place if I want to make our relationship official and exclusive. His name is Jake, and he's been patient about my hesitance to label things or move too fast. I say yes because it feels right and healthy and based on who we both actually are. We talk openly about my divorce and his past relationships, building trust through honesty rather than fantasy. He tells me about his ex-girlfriend who cheated on him during a business trip and how it took him 2 years to feel ready to date again. I tell him about supporting my ex-husband through graduate school and career changes, only to be left for someone younger and more exciting. Jake reaches across the table and squeezes my hand, saying he's glad we both learned what we didn't want before we found each other. The conversation feels easy and real in ways my marriage never did. 2 adults building something together instead of one person constantly adjusting to accommodate the other. 3 weeks later, I cater a wedding for one of Lena's clients, a small ceremony at a historic mansion with 70 guests. The menu features seasonal ingredients and creative plating that showcases my team's skills. During the cocktail hour, Lena pulls me aside and tells me I'm her favorite vendor to work with because I'm reliable, creative, and handle pressure with grace. She says the disaster wedding where we met actually showcased my professionalism better than a smooth event ever could, that she watched me maintain quality and composure when everything was falling apart around me. The compliment means more than I expected, and I thank her for the continued referrals and partnership. She asks if I'm available for a corporate gala in October, and I check my calendar on my phone and confirm the date. We discuss menu options while my team serves the main course, and I feel genuine pride in the reputation I've built through consistent, excellent work. My business is stable and growing with the corporate contract providing steady income and wedding season bookings filling every weekend through next spring. My personal life is healthy and honest with Jake and I building building something based on mutual respect and genuine compatibility. I've built genuine confidence in my abilities and worth that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation or approval. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, devastated and starting over with nothing but a suitcase and cooking skills, crying in a tiny apartment and wondering how I'd survive. I'm grateful for the journey that brought me here, even though it was painful and terrifying at the time. The divorce forced me to discover capabilities I didn't know I had, pushed me to build something entirely my own instead of supporting someone else's dreams. I wake up most mornings feeling proud of my life, instead of anxious about whether I'm doing enough or being enough for someone else. I'm planning the menu for next month's events at my desk in the commercial kitchen, when I realize I haven't thought about my ex-husband in weeks. He's become just a chapter in my history rather than a defining feature of my identity or a wound that still bleeds when touched. I built something real from the ruins of that marriage, discovered strength and capability I never knew I had during all those years of making myself smaller. The life I have now is genuinely mine in ways my married life never was, shaped by my choices and priorities instead of constant compromise and accommodation. I look at the calendar filled with bookings and the staff schedule showing my growing team and feel satisfaction that has nothing to do with proving anything to anyone. This is what I built from nothing, what I created when I stopped waiting for someone else to validate my worth or tell me I was enough.